The Senate will come back to order. The Senate will come back to order. Hold on, you want me to read? I haven't called out the caption yet. Oh, okay. Okay, got you. Senate will come back to order. Mr. Secretary, can you please read the caption of House Bill 972? House Bill 972.
House Bill 972 by Representative Houston of the 170th. A bill to be entitled an act to amend Article 5 of Chapter 2 of Title 46 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to miscellaneous offenses and penalties so as to provide for penalties for violations of pipeline safety standards and regulations prescribed and enforced by the Public Service Commission, to provide for a definition, to provide for related matters. The Committee of the Senate on Regulated Industries and Utilities recommends this bill do pass. Bill Cowser, 46th Chairman.
The chair recognizes the senator from the 56th and has read your mind and had the caption already read. For what purpose does the senator rise?
Thank you, Mr. President. I motion that House Bill 972 be taken from the table.
Senator from the 56th has made a motion that House Bill 972 be taken off the table. Is there objection? Chair hears none and is off the table. The chair recognizes the senator from the 56th to speak to the measure.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is a simple bill with the Public Service Commission that pertains to pipeline safety. We are lining up the fines and fee schedules with that of the federal government. All are in support of that, including those that are being monitored. If there are no questions, I will yield the well.
Senator, you have no questions. Any other senator wish to speak for or against House Bill 972? The chair sees none. Is there objection to agreeing to the report of the committee which is favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Is there objection to the main question being ordered? Chair hears none. The main question is ordered. The questions on the passage of the bill. All those in favor of the bill vote yea. Opposed, nay. The secretary will unlock the machine. All senators, please enter the chamber and vote your machines. Have all senators voted? Have all senators voted? Have all senators voted? I'm getting a thumbs up from the hallway. Mr. Secretary, please close the machine. On the passage of the bill, the yeas are 45, the nays are 0. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. Chair recognizes the pro tem for point of, Chair recognizes the pro tem.
Parliamentary Inquiry, Mr. President.
State your inquiry.
Mr. President, I'd like to recognize and ask the Senate at large to recognize and thank the staff for the lunch. It was somewhat of a scramble. We made a lunch order online for individual boxes to be delivered. And of course, it was delivered buffet style. And the staff scrambled out there and got gloves and masks and aprons and took care of the Senate body. And I want the Senate body to know that it was not ordered that way. I apologize that it was served that way. We want to make sure that we take care and observe our social distancing and precautions relative to the COVID CDC requirements and guidelines. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator, for highlighting that, and I certainly participated myself and appreciate all their help in getting us lunch. Thank you. Chair recognizes the senator from the 23rd for a motion. Chair recognizes the senator from the 23rd.
Mr. President, I ask for unanimous consent to remove House Bill 786 from the table.
Mr. Secretary, can you please read the caption?
House Bill 786 by Representative Welch of the 110th and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Code Section 15-6-2 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to the number of judges of the Superior Court so as to authorize and provide for an additional judge of the Superior Court of Flint Judicial Circuit, to provide for the appointment of such additional judge by the governor and for other purposes. Mr. President, the Senate Committee on Judiciary recommends this bill do pass by substitute. Senator Stone of the 23rd District Chair. The Senate Judiciary Committee offers the following substitute to House Bill 786, bill to be entitled an act to amend Code Section 15-6-2 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to the number of judges of the Superior Court so as to provide for an 11th judge of the Superior Courts of Cobb Judicial Circuit, a 4th judge of the Superior Courts of Flint Judicial Circuit, a 4th judge of the Superior Court of Ogeechee Judicial Circuit, and for other purposes. Mr. President, Senator Stone of the 23rd District offers the following amendment. Amend the Senate Committee on Judiciary substitute to House Bill 786 by replacing 2023 with 2024 on lines 3157 and 148, by replacing 2022 with 2024 on line 149, and for other purposes. Mr. President, that completes the order.
Senator from the 23rd has moved that House Bill 786 be taken off the table. Is there objection? The chair hears none, and it's taken off the table. Chair recognizes the senator from the 23rd to speak to House Bill 786.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senators, I bring to you House Bill 786, which is a consolidation of three separate bills. One was a Senate bill, and the other two were House bills. These represent the culmination of a data-driven process for assessing judicial workloads around the state, and to identify the underserved areas of the state based on the number and type of cases they have, their population growth, other factors that are recognized by the National Center for State Courts. The Judicial Council, Administrative Office of the Courts, does this based on a 3-year average of cases. It does this based on a proven methodology, and it has identified areas such as the Ageechee Circuit, the Cobb Circuit, and the Flint Circuit that are underserved by as much as 50% based on changes within those circuits. In recognition of the budgetary constraints, we have on your desk Amendment Number 1, which would postpone the effective date of the bill for a year and a half to January 1, 2022. This is something that is needed, particularly in light of the backlogs that have been generated by the COVID pandemic. I can testify in other circuits where this has had a very detrimental effect on the processing of cases and leading to delay, and of course, justice delayed is justice denied. If there are any questions, I'll be happy to answer them, but if not, I commend to your consideration favorably House Bill 786.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 17th for a question.
The senator yield.
Yes.
Senator, the Flint Judicial Circuit is Henry County, is that correct?
It includes Henry County.
It's actually just all Henry County. It
Yeah,
got
I
moved to
believe
just
it's-
Henry. But the Flint Circuit qualified for a new judgeship back in 2008 under this formula, but has waited 12 years, given the recession we had after that, to get that new judgeship. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And do you further yield?
I do.
Passing this bill will actually help with access to justice in counties like Henry. Is that correct?
Absolutely. Criminal, civil, domestic, all types of cases.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 48th for a question.
Thank you, Mr. President. Does the chairman yield?
I do.
I understand the system by which the judges are allocated based on need. But isn't it true we're committing a future budget now that we technically don't have control over?
I'm sorry, what was the last part of your question?
Isn't it true that we're committing a future budget process over which we have no control over by virtue of passing this bill?
I wouldn't say so. We have general control over all judicial expenditures, and there will be an intervening session between now and the effective date of this bill.
Well, I guess you further yield, sir?
Yeah.
I guess my question is, why are we doing this now versus a year and a half from now when we will actually know our budget for these purposes?
So as to eliminate the extra work of doing an additional workload assessment, this is based on a 3-year workload assessment, and we'd have to go back and do new assessments.
Does the gentleman further yield?
Yes.
I also have a question about prioritization of funds. So we are, as you know, in the current budget, I'm gonna call it a crisis. In the current budget crisis, we're having to allocate between, education, healthcare, transportation, all kinds of different areas. Are we committing a future budget for these judges, or are they just going to be sitting there waiting to see if we can afford them when this actually becomes law?
Well, the budgetary process would determine if these positions get funded. but we have to have the authorization in place before we can take these through the budgetary process.
And are these judges essentially first in line? Is that what we're doing?
Yes, it's just a priority. It's recognizing where the greatest need, the disparity in underserved populations are around the state.
All right, thank you, sir.
Do you continue to yield?
Yes.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 10th for a question.
Thank you, Mr. President. Would the senator yield?
Yes.
Senator, isn't it true that the other senator that represents the Flint Judicial Circuit is appreciative of your efforts to have another judgeship?
I'm sure you speak of what you know.
Thank you, Senator.
Thank you.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 9th for a question.
Thank you, Mr. President. Does the chairman yield?
Yes.
Isn't it true that when Gwinnett County needed a new judgeship that you voted to allow that last year when we did that?
That's correct.
I'll be voting for your bill. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
You have one more question. The chair recognizes the senator from the 31st.
Senator yield.
Yes.
Senator, would you agree that this is a bill that probably every prosecutor would be salivating over?
Well, I don't know about that. There are a lot of prosecutors around the state, and this only affects underserved areas.
For what purpose does the senator from the 28th rise?
At the proper time, I'd like to ask for unanimous consent to excuse the senator from the 29th for business inside the Capitol.
You have no more questions.
Thank you. I urge your favorable consideration to House Bill 786.
What was that district number again, Senator? Senator from the 28th has asked for unanimous consent for the senator from the 29th to be excused. Is there objection? Chair hears none, and it is so. Does any other senator wish to speak for or against the bill or the amendment? The chair sees none. Let's take up amendment number 1 first. The question is on the adoption of amendment number 1 by the senator from the 23rd. Is there objection to adoption of the amendment? Chair hears none, and amendment number 1 is adopted. The question is on the adoption of the committee substitute as amended. Is there objection to adoption of the committee substitute as amended? Chair hears none. The committee substitute as amended is adopted. Is there objection to agreeing to the report of the committee which is favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Is there objection to the main question being ordered? Chair hears none, and the main question is ordered. Questions on the passage of the bill by substitute. All those in favor of the bill vote yea. Opposed nay. The secretary will unlock the machine. For what purpose does the senator from the 17th rise?
I ask for unanimous consent the senator from the 20th be excused for business inside the Capitol.
Senator, it's too late. The voting machines are open. Have all senators voted? Have all senators voted? Mr. Secretary, please close the machine. On the passage of the bill, the yeas are 46 and nays are 3. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed by substitute.
recognize the Lacey's Law. You're going to recognize the senator from the 32nd. I'd like to recognize the senator from the 32nd.
Thank you, Mr. President. I ask for unanimous consent to move House Bill 1125 off the table.
Ask him to read the caption. Read the caption, Mr. Secretary. Mr. Secretary.
House Bill 1125 by Representative Kelly of the 16th, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Article 1 of Chapter 1 of Title 31 and Article 1 of Chapter 18 of Title 45 of the Official Code of Georgia Annotated relating to general provisions relating to health and state employees' health insurance and benefits plans, respectively, so as to provide for information and screening coverage for individuals at high risk for breast cancer and for other purposes. Mr. President, the Senate Committee on Health and Human Services recommends this bill do pass. Senator Watson, the First District Chair. That completes the order.
The senator from the 32nd has asked unanimous consent to remove the bill from the table. Is there any objection? Hearing none, so be acted. Recognize the senator from the 32nd. I recognize the senator from the 32nd.
All right.
Nope, we're not lit.
Thank you. House Bill 1125 has to do with breast cancer detection. Technology for early detection of breast cancer has improved, and cancers are being picked up at a much earlier age. This bill changes the age for coverage by the state health benefit plan for breast cancer screening from 35 to 30 years of age. It also requires the Department of Public Health to maintain a list of factors that indicate a high risk for breast cancer. Be happy to answer any questions.
If we have any questions, Senator recognizes Senator James. Senator James. Senator from the 35th. Senator from the 35th.
That's all right. You can call me James. You can call me Johnson. You can call me anything. Okay. Just call me, right?
Say, oh, behave. Let that Senate come to order, please.
Thank you very much. And will the senator yield?
Certainly.
I'm very happy about this bill, but isn't it true that I also had a bill just like it? This Senate Bill 349 that didn't come out of committee this year.
I'm not aware of that, Senator. I was asked to carry this by a House member, and because I care about the subject matter, I agreed to do so, and I'm hoping you'll support the bill.
That's where I stood. I was interested in this particular issue, and I had studied. Nobody gave me the bill to put in, but since it's just like it, of course, you have my vote. I don't care who gets the credit. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm not sure I want to recognize the next senator. She's been a prosecutor, and I don't like to get close to them vote. Well, the senator from the 48th has a question.
Thank you, Mr. President, or Pro Tem, or
Whatever.
Senior. Thank you, and thank you for your service to this state. I'm honored to serve with you. And thank you for recognizing me for this very important question. Does the chairwoman yield?
Absolutely, for the senator from the 48.
Thank you, ma'am. Is there a fiscal impact of this note?
No, ma'am, there is not. Thank you for the question.
We have no more questions, Senator.
Thank you. I yield the will.
Recognize the senator from the 17th.
I want to try a second time for my seatmate. Ask for unanimous consent. The senator from the 20th be excused for business outside the chamber.
The senator from the 17th has asked unanimous consent to excuse the senator from the 25th, 20th. Got you. No objection. So ordered. The senator from the 27th is recognized.
Parliamentary Inquiry.
State your inquiry, and I'm not sure that it's in order.
Mr. President, isn't it true that this is your last session in this distinguished body before you head off to retirement?
I think you're right.
Parliamentary Inquiry.
Go ahead.
Mr. President, assuming you have some spare time next year, would you be so kind as to perhaps join us for a day in 2020 as the honorary bill reader in the Senate?
You know, I tell you what. As much trouble as I had understanding you, I don't think y'all need to be put through that sort of torture. Recognize the senator from the 10th.
Parliamentary Inquiry, Mr. President.
Yes.
Or seatmate, whichever I should call you. Are you familiar with Rule 1-4.9 in our rules of the Georgia Senate?
No, sir. I make up my rules as I go along sometimes.
But just in regard to that particular rule, if I can refresh your memory, regards standard of conduct, is it also not true that I've sat next to you for so many years and that we've never really had a conversation that either one of us understood what we were saying to each other?
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President.
The senator from the 9th is recognized.
Parliamentary Inquiry.
So state your inquiry.
Mr. President, isn't it true that we served 2 years as sweepmates and we have spent the last 6 years sitting next to each other in this chamber, and that I do speak Ellis Black?
I do believe that is accurate. We have the senator from the 53rd to be recognized.
Parliamentary Inquiry.
State your inquiry.
Isn't it true that you and I came in this wonderful building together about 19 years ago?
It's closer to 20 now.
Well, it will be when the clock turns around. Isn't it true that I have enjoyed working with such an outstanding pioneer of a man, especially when it comes to agriculture and just rules of life? Say yes.
Yes.
Isn't it true that my whole world has been improved and inspired by my service with Mr. I won't break a rule, Ellis Black of Southwest Georgia? Say yes.
Well, it would have been enriched much more if you had to quit, if you could just quit stealing my administrative assistants. Every time I bring one in and train them, you steal them. Is there any other senator that we should speak? No, can't recognize him out of their seat. Sorry. Senator from the 43rd.
Thank you, Mr. President. Parliamentary Inquiry.
State your inquiry.
Isn't it true that you are the chairman of the Retirement Committee?
Yes.
Further inquiry.
Yes.
Is it also true that you hold the record for 5-minute meetings
with 5 bills, 1 minute per bill.
We get it done, don't we?
Parliamentary Inquiry.
Go ahead.
Is it also true that I am going to miss being your secretary of the Retirement Committee, and I appreciate your service, and I thank you so much.
Thank you. And I will say that isn't it also true to you that I've always offered to go bail you out of jail situation?
Yes, it's true that you thought I got arrested, but I didn't.
Thank you to my great committee member. Senator from the 28th.
Parliamentary Inquiry.
Yes, go ahead.
Mr. President, is it not true you were my first? My first suite mate?
I do believe that is accurate.
And is it also not true that our assistant that we had together, the senator from the 53rd, did indeed steal her?
And we ain't forgot it, have we?
We have not. And not only that, immediately leaving him, he inspired her to go get a job at Spanx. Think about that. No further inquiry.
Thank you. Recognize the senator from the 40th.
Parliamentary Inquiry.
Yes, state your inquiry.
Is it not true that 20 years ago we served in the Georgia House of Representatives together?
We certainly did.
And do you remember me taking care of my babies in the Georgia House?
I do.
And is it not true that we were both Democrats?
That's fact.
Thank you.
The senator from the 5th is recognized.
Parliamentary Inquiry.
State your inquiry.
We've heard a lot about 20 years ago when you came here, and people have asked me about how you got started in politics, but I knew your predecessor in the House. He was a longtime chairman of the House Agriculture Committee, and I know that he did a wide-ranging search in southwest Georgia to look for his replacement. Would you share with us his rationale for asking you to seek that office down there?
Well, he was a man that was very straightforward. And what he thought is what you got out of him. And I'll never forget when he first came to me and told me that he had reached the point that he needed to get out and that he wanted me to run and take his seat. And he says, I can't get the fellow I want to run. I'd really like to have somebody from Brooks County, but there ain't but one man that can do the job, and he won't run, so I want you to run. This fellow was brutally honest, exactly how he felt. Thank you. The senator from the 20th.
Thank you, Mr. President. Parliamentary Inquiry.
State your inquiry.
Mr. President, isn't it true that you're one of the wisest legislators I've served with?
Well, that would be debatable with some people, but I do try to put thought and try to use my best judgment.
And isn't it true that I have enjoyed and appreciated your institutional knowledge and advice and guidance on issues that's come before us?
Well, I do that, and I think that it's appropriate for me to address the relationship our families share, because having served with your daddy, and now my son has moved into your community, and our children are friends, and we just got enormous connections that go real deep, and so this is a great treasure for us.
Absolutely. And Mr. President, isn't it true that I appreciate your mentorship and highly value your friendship?
Thank you, sir.
One further question, Parliamentary Inquiry,
Yes, sir.
Mr. President. Isn't it true that one of the most memorable moments of of my tenure here is when you introduced a bill or spoke on a bill that had to do with the sexual orientation of cows.
That's a deep subject. It has a lot of potential for debate. Senator from the second is recognized.
Parliamentary Inquiry, Mr. President.
Yes, sir. State your inquiry.
Isn't it true, Mr. President, you have guided this body wisely with your knowledge of high school athletics, and you've taught us how sports should be played, and guided young athletes to be good public students and good servants of this great state.
Thank you. I do appreciate that, and it's a great passion of mine. And we have moved things forward, and I appreciate you and the efforts that you have put forth in that. Thank you. Recognize the senator from the 18th at this time.
Parliamentary Inquiry, Mr. President.
State your inquiry.
Isn't it true you have so ably served in this body for 6 years? Is that right?
That's correct.
And isn't it true that you served in the House of Representatives for many years?
14.
And isn't it true you also gave yourself so unselfishly for public service and other capacities before you came to the Capitol?
Yes, I've been involved in a few things.
Would you mind reminding this body of the total of years that you have given to the people of Georgia in the various capacities where you have served as a public servant? What is that number, sir?
I'd have to calculate. It started back, I reckon, in 1990 when I was led into being on the local school board. And maybe since we're a little off record here, I could share a story as to how I got into public life. I'd been very active in civic affairs and had a number of people over the years that had encouraged me to run for school board, county commission, and a number of other things. But our local school got split up big time over which group was going to control the football program. And there was two factions, and both factions tried to pull me in, and I didn't want none of that because I didn't have the answer to the problems. Finally, one Thursday, before qualifying ended at Friday noon, a third group from the county came and told me I had to run for the school board because they said, we need somebody that can put this school system back together. And I knew that the worst place you can be in politics is on a local school board. And you got problems up here, but I'm going to tell you right now, it ain't nothing like being on a school board. And I said, I ain't running for a school board. And they said, well, who else do you know that can still got a relationship with both sides that we could get to run? And I couldn't think of anybody that I thought. And so I said, I don't know, but I ain't running. Friday morning come, and I had to go to Valdosta, which is about 15 miles away. And while I was gone, that third group come back and talked to my wife. And wondered if I was going to run. She said, well, he said he wasn't going to run yesterday. He said, well, we sure got to have him because he's the only fellow we know that can put this system back together. And a little after 10, I walked back into my office, and my wife said, did you qualify for running for school board? I said, no, I told them people I wasn't going to run yesterday. She said, well, get your butt back up there and qualify. Because you're the only person we know that has a chance to do something. And I'll be honest with you, I went on there with the sole agenda of trying to bring some peace. And I knew I was running for a dead-end term because we changed the law at the same time to go from election countywide to election by district. So I knew I didn't have but 4 years. I went in. 2 years later, got elected chairman. 2 years later, I was off, but I had gotten the football program back together, and I got the people back behind it, and I probably was at the apex of my political power in Lowndes County at that time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. We appreciate your service.
Appreciate it. No. You know, sir, that he speak. Y'all are very kind. Thank you. Thank you. Other senators would like to speak on this bill that we have on the board. This right here. All right. Are there objections to agreeing to the report of the committee which is favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Is there objections to the main question being ordered? The chair hears none, and the main question is ordered. The question is on the passage of the bill. Those in favor of the bill will vote yes, opposed nay. The secretary will unlock the machine. Voted?
Just give me a thumbs up.
Got a thumbs up, so, Mr. Secretary, will you close the, will you close the machine?
So read that and plug in your yeses and nos.
On the passage of the bill, the yeas and nays are
48 to nothing.
48 to nothing. And the nays are 0. The bill being received the required constitutional majority is hereby passed. Here we go.
That was great. I'm one of those few that sat within arm's reach of Ellis over the senator in the House. He sat right behind me, and I spent the first 2 years, and I had no clue what he was saying, but he was a nice guy. And then he spoke so highly of the Senate that it really caused me to want to shift the geography over here and come over here to the Senate. So thank you for your service, Senator. Great job. Chair recognizes the senator from the 8th for a motion. Sir, you're not the president anymore. You got to go make a motion.
Mr. President, I move that we pull House Bill 1039 from the table.
Mr. Secretary, can you please read the caption?
House Bill 1039 by Representative Watkins of the 172nd and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Chapter 12 of Title 13 of the Official Code of Georgia, annotated, relating to automatic renewal provisions, so as to provide additional protections for consumers who enter into service contracts that contain lengthy automatic renewal provisions to provide for related matters, to repeal conflicting laws and for other purposes. Mr. President, the Committee of the Senate on Agriculture and Consumer Affairs recommend that this bill do pass.
Mr. President, amendment number 1.
The senator from the 8th. Oh, we've got 2 amendments. Sorry, I'm ahead of myself here. Maybe you ought to do this.
When I say stop, say for and for other purposes.
Okay.
Senator Albers is the 51st.
Amendment number 1, Senator Albers of the 56th. Offered the following amendment number 1 by striking line 23 through 30, beginning on line 15, striking from notification line 16 days, replacing, and for other purposes. Senator Black of the 8th, offering the following amendment number 2 by, online and after, I can't read, I'm sorry.
Can't understand his writing either.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. Amendment number 2 by Senator Black of the 8th, amend House Bill 1039 by striking on line 4 after insert to provide the effective date and for other purposes.
Senator from the 8th has moved that House Bill 1039 be taken from the table. Is there objection? Chair hears none and it's off the table. The chair recognizes the distinguished and honorable senator from the 8th to present House Bill 1039 and his amendment, amendment number 2.
Thank you, Mr. President. This bill has to do with contracts that are paid for by automatic drafts to banking accounts or to deductions automatically from charge cards. And I want to start off by first off telling you what it doesn't do. This bill doesn't do anything that affects any plan that you've got where you're paying your bills automatically, and this can be reversed at any time. It doesn't do anything that affects any contract of 12 months or less, and my amendment that I prepared extends it to 24 months. This bill simply requires that if someone has a contract long-term, and I'm going to talk on the as if the amendment is approved because it's recommended by the author, and I'm going to certainly approve it myself. So any contract over 2 years that's up on an automatic deduct plan, that the customer has to be notified either by paper or certainly most of them all by email. They have to be notified that they're coming due and they have the opportunity to not renew it. That email would also have to require that they had to check a box if they wanted to renew it and respond. This would prohibit a situation where a fellow failed to get that email and failed to recognize it until the time had passed, and all of a sudden he's locked into a new long-term contract. This doesn't just deal with contracts involving $9.95 monthly deductions. We got a number of things that we deal with that get into some serious business. I've got a contract, or had a contract with AT&T that was a bundle: landline, cell phone, internet, and television. Thing was nearly, it's over $450. I mean, that gets into serious money, folks, and it was a 2-year contract. And if you don't get that message and don't, for some reason you choose not to want to renew it, then all of a sudden you're obligated to attend, and I don't think there's any limit under the law now as to how much contracts can go to. But this says that if you're dealing with these type contracts, you've got to give the customer notification and give him a chance to, and you've got to have a response from him. Right now, the law says you've got to notify him, but there's no assurance he gets it. And, you know, I've had some opposition expressed to me about people talk about how it will affect their business. Well, I'm going to tell you something. I've had, in the last 10 years, I've had 2 times that I had to change my credit card. One time I had someone steal my identity. Another time the card was lost. And I had a number of these type contracts, and I contacted all of them, give them the new number so that it could be continued. Each time that I was faced with this, I had an app on my computer I wasn't sure I really needed to renew it. I wasn't using it that much. One of them was $39.95 a month. And I was beginning to question whether or not that I needed to be. Well, I'm going to tell you, if you don't, of course, if they got your card, or they got your, doing it with a bank deduction, and they got your tracking information, routing information for your bank, they're going to go ahead and exercise it. Well, the minute they tried to send in my old card number, it got rejected. So I got an email, a new card number. Then I got another email. Well, I still wasn't sure whether or not I wanted it. But right before it come up that it was fixing to be expired, they was concerned enough they gave me a phone call. And this is over a $39.95 a month deal. I mean, you talk about these contracts involving megabucks. I mean, the least thing they can do is be sure that you're getting it. I don't see anything wrong with asking people that's in business, when they ask people to trust them with their credit card information, trust them with their bank routing information so they can just automatically get that money. I don't see anything wrong with asking them to make sure they make contact with you and get your consent before you are hooked into another long-term contract. If there's any questions, I'll entertain any questions at this time.
Chair recognizes the minority leader for a question.
Senator Yield?
I certainly will.
Senator, I certainly appreciate your work on this. Isn't it true that it's important to have an effective date so that everybody will have time to prepare for this?
Yes, that's the reason. We had a sub that had been prepared by the author that made these changes, plus changed the time frame from 12 months to 24 at the request of some of the people that was in business. It didn't get through rules that way. He brought it to me, and that sub was larger than the bill, so I had to do an amendment to put everything that was in that sub in our bill. And so, thank you for that question.
Thank you. And if the Senator will further yield, the question I have is the 1 year versus 2 years. It seems like if you agree, as I do, with your concept, that if you're going to have a deduction made, having an authorization to approve it, actively approve it is a good thing. Why do you like to move it from 2 years? It's presently in the bill as 1 year. Why do you think that's better?
Well, otherwise, that's a good question, and I think this could be viewed as an initial step. I think that there's some questions. I've got some good friends here that have raised some issues about this, and I recognize that we get trapped into business patterns, And so we don't need to jump too far too fast. And so I think that a 2-year time limit is certainly better than what we got right now. If this doesn't cause problems and the people in the industry see that they can work with this, there's some other things I would have added to this if it were not at this time of the session, because I don't want to see this thing amended to the point that the author is not agreeable with, so when we send it back out of here, he'll agree with it and we'll be done with it. And so I think there's going to be opportunities to deal with this, and there's going to be opportunities to address some of the concerns that folks, that this is a key part of their business. Thank you.
You have no more questions. Chair recognizes the senator from the 27th to speak to the bill and amendment number 1.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you to the Senator of the 8th for bringing this bill. I think he brings it with good intention. One of the advantages of having a citizen legislature is that each of us bring our expertise from different areas of industry into this body. I've worked in the software industry for 15 years. I've owned a number of other businesses as well. And while this bill is birthed from good intentions, it places onerous regulation onto industry that I don't think that we as a body should be doing, and I'll explain to you why that is. We write lots of laws down here. It's what we spend most of our time doing. But one of the laws that we don't get the opportunity to really vote on is the law of unintended consequences, and the law of unintended consequences certainly is in play, unfortunately, with this bill. Over the last 10 years, the world has changed. We've seen a digital revolution. In fact, if I would have told you 15 years ago, if any of you were here, Senator from the 8th was across the hall, that you'd be typing on a piece of glass to transmit messages to and from people all over the world, you would have thought that was crazy. If I would have told you that you would no longer be buying software as a prepackaged product, but you'd be buying software as a service, that seemed crazy. Adobe changed the world when they moved to what is now known as the SaaS model, which is software as a service. Since then, we've seen the emergence of platform as a service, all of which, most of which I should say, are derived and live on this idea of an automatic renewal. What this bill does is it requires any business that has any sort of renewal, and this is not just software, by the way, this is magazines, this is music services, this is applications, these are services that you're providing in your home every day. It requires the business to find you and allow you to opt in to something you've already opted into. You have to opt into an automatic renewal. And should you see that renewal charge come through, you have the opportunity through your credit card company to dispute that charge. And in 99% of cases, in fact, in my business, 100% of the cases that we have seen, the consumer wins that battle. So I'll give you the example from my company, how this would impact us. If we were to sell a 2-year contract to somebody with a 2-year automatic renewal, the consumer would choose to do that because if we were to sell a software product for 2 years, we might give them 2 months free or 3 months free or 4 months free. So the consumers often pay for these automatic renewals because it is easier for us to deliver that service. They tell us they want us to sign up for that 2-year renewal and to renew every 2 months. We, by the statute today, are required to notify them that their renewal is up and give them the option to cancel that renewal. What this bill does, though, is it requires us to rewrite the entire back end of our system so that we can get written acknowledgement or receipt of, written or electronic acknowledgement from the consumer of receipt of the notification under this subsection. That's not something most businesses are doing today. Or an affirmative written or electronic response that the consumer does not intend to terminate the service contract. This creeps into every area of business-to-business contract as well, and I'll explain to you why. Consumer in the code under Chapter 12 is essentially defined as an individual, but it also captures nonprofit organizations exempt from taxation. So should you be selling to any business, you have to also assume that a nonprofit could be buying your service. And you also have to assume in most cases that a consumer could be subscribing to your service. So even for Cisco or somebody like that who predominantly does business-to-business transactions, you are capturing them in the net of this consumer requirement. So you're going to force, I would guess, tens of thousands, if not over 100,000 businesses in the state of Georgia, that's my best estimate on some research that I've done, that participate in business that have automatic renewals to change the entire way they do business. Now, I think the heart of where the senator that presented this bill comes from, the heart of what he's getting at is legitimate. And we see music services or cable services or people provide a free service with an automatic renewal at the end of the free trial. If that's the problem that we're trying to solve, which I think is a problem that may be worth solving, we are casting a very, very wide net to catch that small fish. I think that we can solve this, and this is what Amendment 1 does. I think that we offered to table this, but the author in the House did not take us up on this. What our amendment does, that the senator from the 56th and I have presented, is it strikes lines 23 through 30 completely. And I've offered to the senator from the 8th to come back and personally carry the legislation next year in his absence to catch the fish that we're trying to catch, which is the automatic renewal, the free trials that convert to automatic renewals. The amendment also adds a second notification. So right now there's one notification that's required under current law. We add the regulation in this to require a second notification. I think that what we need to do is really think hard. I got a call over our lunch break from a lobbyist who represents the magazine industry. When I thought about the challenges with this bill, the magazine industry never crossed my mind. I can guarantee you there are fish that we will catch in this net that we do not intend to catch and that we may not even know are in the ocean. I think that we need to come back, take a targeted approach to this, and not interfere in every business-to-consumer contract and every business-to-business contract that incorporates an automatic renewal. Be happy to answer any questions, Mr. President, but if not, I'll yield the well.
You have a question. The chair recognizes the senator from the 46th for a question.
Thank you, Mr. President. Will the senator yield?
I will.
Unless I'm misreading their amendment, it essentially strikes the entire bill, not just guts it, but it removes all. Why not just say, let's vote no for this bill if that's, I mean, isn't that what it does? If you take out everything from lines 23 to 30, those are the only underlying lines that change the underlying law.
If this amendment fails, I will be voting no for this bill, and I would hope that all senators who don't want to interfere in private contracts would do that. But what I do think that this does, I certainly have missed a piece of mail here and there, Senator, I'm sure you have as well. So this requires a second notification, whether it's mail or email, to go out to the consumer. And that's the replace with 2 notifications shall be provided to the consumer, 1 no less than 30 days and 1 no less than 60 days. Currently, in the current bill, in the current law, there's only 1 notification that's required. So we're doubling the notification requirement, but we are indeed striking the requirement that for the consumer who is asked to auto-renew, that they ask again to auto-renew.
So all I'm saying is when we are presented a bill, the Legislative Counsel's office adds the additional language or strikes through existing language. What your amendment is doing is simply removing the only changes made to underlying law. So why not just vote no for the bill if you don't want to change underlying law? These lines, 7 through 22 are in the code books now.
Correct.
Okay. So
we are changing the underlying law. We are striking. Do you have a copy of the amendment there with you?
I do.
Okay. So do you see the replace with 2 notifications shall be provided?
So what amendment number is that one?
It's amendment number 1.
Okay.
So, Senator, I'll talk to you about it in plain language, if you will. Right now, a single notification is required. And as an attempt at a compromise to allow the consumer the opportunity to double check and have two bites at the apple, if you will, to opt out of the auto renewal that they did sign up for, Instead of giving them just one opportunity to do that, we are changing that to give them two.
Okay, so you're just giving them another chance to opt out, which is already allowed under current law.
There's one opportunity currently under current law. We're mandating two. That's right.
You continue to yield?
I do.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 48th for a question.
Thank you, Mr. President. Does the senator yield?
I do.
So I just want to share with you what I hear complaints about and ask you how your changes resolve that issue. So my understanding from folks is that they sign up for something, whether it's a magazine or cable or whatever they sign up for, and then over and over again they get renewed, and over again when they try to not be renewed, they never get it fixed, and they go on for months and months and months and can't get out of this contract. And I'm sure you agree with me that's a problem. How are you helping that at all?
I can't speak to the magazine side because I can't tell you the last time I've subscribed to a magazine. I can tell you that personally, and I know that not every business is the same, but the businesses that I've interacted with, I've got a couple different remedies available to me today. I have the remedy of contacting the company directly, which in my personal experience, if I've contacted a company and asked to cancel an auto-renewal, that has happened every single time. The second remedy that's available to me today is that of the credit card dispute. I've been on the receiving end of credit card disputes, and I've been on the dispute end of credit card disputes. And without exception, the money within 48 hours has been refunded to my account. And in the disputes that we've filed, to the extent that in my company, we have had consumers who have said, oh my goodness, I didn't realize that your company was called blah, blah, blah. I just know your company by the product name. And so I disputed the charge, but it's a legitimate charge. We've had the consumer write letters to the credit card company stating that it was a legitimate charge. And we have still had to start a new charge with them because the credit card company still will not credit us for it because so much deference is given to the consumer in the dispute process, which is great, but it does fly in the face a little bit with the notion that somebody's repeatedly being charged for something. I'm not saying that somebody has not told you that. I'm saying perhaps they haven't availed themselves of the remedies that are available.
May I further
Please.
question? I might submit to you that you might have better business practices than a lot of these companies that I hear complaints about. And even myself, I've had to cancel a credit card because companies wouldn't cancel what I didn't want. And so I do think there needs to be balancing, but I submit to you maybe you're, and I would think you probably are, running a better business than a lot of folks that have these issues. And so I would just ask you to consider that.
Yeah, thank you for that. And I would tell you again, this is a shotgun approach against a wall that's going to impact every business to consumer, and every business to business relationship that affects an auto renewal. When perhaps what we need is a more precise instrument than just kind of going after everything that is out there.
You have no more questions.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 56th to speak to the measure and the amendments.
Thank you, Mr. President. Let me begin by thanking the senator from the 8th for his incredible work and friendship, and I know he is trying to help an important issue advance as well as a colleague in the House. I want to follow up a little bit on what the senator from the 27th said. This is really important. His business sells software. I don't sell it, but I do sign lots of contracts. We have been trying to, many of us in this room, to continue to build economic development through our state. In fact, the president of this body has done an exceptional job doing that. We've lured software companies here that are everywhere from Augusta to Midtown to Alpharetta, Georgia. We treasure those high-paying jobs that are doing great things in our communities. What we have, though, in our state now is, as the senator from the 27th mentions, is people buy things on subscription, and we have a choice. When I go buy it, I have a choice whether I want to sign up to buy it one time or if I want to do it over a certain amount of years or buy a contract, whether it's through software or it's my membership at the gym. I have the choice to sign that for a shorter or longer amount of time. Sometimes it's beneficial to the rate for me, right? But it's ultimately my decision for how I do that. What we do if this bill is not amended is we now apply all those rules to the couple of bad actors which the senator from the 48th aptly mentioned. It's true there are some folks out there will do that. This bill will not change it. They will still continue to bill your credit card when they shouldn't. In some cases, it is ignorance. In some cases, it is truly malicious. But what we are doing here is we are interrupting the contract that an individual has signed with a business by doing this. Again, we accept those terms and say, I want to sign up with them. That's the purpose of having an auto-renewal in place. Most of the time, I'll be honest with you, I don't choose the auto-renewal because I don't want to deal with that, but that is each and every one of our choice. So we have to be careful. The law of unintended consequences was what was used. That is so aptly true in this place. I think we do need to do more. Senator from 46th, you asked a great question. And it was our idea to say, you know what, let's give them 2 bites at the apple, not just one. Let's say we're not just going to send 1 email or 1 letter to remind you that you have an upcoming renewal. We'll send you 2, right, and to help. Does this need further study and further work? Absolutely. But let's not throw the baby out with the bathwater. If there are no questions, I will yield the well.
You do have questions. Chair recognizes the senator from the 46th for a question.
Thank you, Mr. President. Will Senator yield?
Certainly.
So if you're sending them these 2 emails anyway, why don't you just do what this bill says and say, click yes if you're in agreement to extend the contract? Because these are long-term contracts. If you're going to have to reach out to them already to advise them you're about to be extended, why not just say, check yes, reply if you want to continue with this agreement of whatever type it may be?
Thank you for your question, Senator. Then what's the purpose of choosing auto-renewal to begin with? The whole point is auto-renewal. What you're saying is, I'm going to get you to commit to the next renewal. Auto-renewal means I'm okay with you doing this on my behalf. And I don't know about you, but during a legislative session, I'm getting upwards of 600 to 1,000 emails a day. I might miss that, but I don't want to have my software shut off when I get back up to my computer because I did. Again, we agree to that in a contract, just like you probably advise your clients in your law firm all the time.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 27th for a question.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator Yield.
Certainly.
Senator, isn't it true that under 13-2.12 of our code that it is illegal to sign anyone up for an auto renewal without their consent? And isn't it true that the code actually says that this needs to be clear and conspicuous as a contract offer?
Senator, you're absolutely right. And what you're pointing out is it's very clear that you're agreeing to those terms to begin with. And should you not want to agree with those terms, then they're going to send you an email or a letter anyway asking for you to stay. So either you believe that we're allowed to have a binding contractual process or you don't.
You further yield?
I do.
Senator, isn't it true that since we've shown already that this is going to impact not only business to consumer relationships, but business to business relationships, that this impacts the customer as well? Senator, isn't it true that businesses often have employees who change, but they still may want to subscribe to a service?
That's absolutely true.
Do you further yield?
I yield.
And isn't it true that if employee A leaves the company but is replaced by employee B, but the company still desires to be in that SaaS relationship, but you email employee A to ask them to click on the link that the senator from the 46th describes, that email goes off into oblivion, but the company may still wish to have that service, and that service can be cut off without any notice then to that company because the email was never received. Isn't that true?
Senator, it is true. Let me give you a real-time example of that. I operate in multiple businesses in our state, some that I work for and some that I own. And I am the one who procures that software. And if it is going to someone in my AR department or someone who works for me who is out on maternity leave or is not available at that time, they do not renew that, I could shut down hundreds, if not thousands of people's ability to do their job because of the unintended consequences of this law. So we have to be careful, again, not to throw the baby out with the bathwater.
Do you further yield?
I do.
Senator, can you describe for us, since you mentioned you are often selling and buying software, the types of changes that would be required right now from an automated bot that sends out notification to the requirement not only to receive the click back that the senator from the 46th described,
But if you don't receive that clickback, the detective mission that you need to go on to try to find the one out of 100,000 customers or 200,000 customers who otherwise would experience the situation that you just described.
Senator, the cost that we will put on those businesses, from a cybersecurity company based in Augusta, Georgia, to a high-tech company that's based in Midtown, Alpharetta, or anyone in between in our state, will have to do massive programmatic changing, likely have additional staff work that would be limitless in order to comply with a law that in fact breaks the very contract for which the consumer signed up for.
Senator, do you further yield?
I yield.
Are you aware of any other state in the union that requires this, what's being proposed?
I am not aware of any other state.
Thank you, Senator.
Do you continue to yield?
I'll yield.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 31st for a question.
Does Senator yield?
Certainly.
Isn't it true that there are, and you guys were talking about SAS systems or SAS, and I was trying to be sure that I wasn't going to talk about exactly that, but even if I am, there's many people in this room who also wouldn't know what that is. But a system where, with the cloud-based computing that many of us use today, where you've got documents or financial records or whatever that's stored in the cloud, and if your subscription ran out and you didn't respond, isn't it true that you could lose very important data without intending to do that?
Senator, thank you for bringing that question, and you bring up a very valid point that has not been mentioned. I use a product called Dropbox. Many of you have heard of it. I keep my documents there so they're backed up and they're secure, and if I'm on a different computer, I can access that stuff. And many of you use similar type of products. Well, if the auto-renewal came and you forgot to do it, your account is going to be shut off. It's going to be shut off. That's your family photos, that's your information, that's all the documents you work on and the things that you're doing. And you may have just not followed through, even though you yourself agreed that I want to keep this going. So thank you for bringing up that excellent point.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 46th for a question.
Mike, thank you, Mr. President. Senator, you have one final question.
Always for my friend.
Are you aware that the Technical Association of Georgia is sending out text and notices and emails to all of the senators saying they support this bill with the senator from the 8th Amendment?
I have not seen any emails from TAG, although I'm a member and I have been for a very long time. However, I have talked to numerous of our large tech companies who have grave concerns with this bill, up to and including the addition of the 2 years.
You have no more questions.
Thank you. I yield the
Does
ball.
any other senator wish to speak for or against the measure or the amendments? The chair sees none. Let's take up amendment number 1 first. Amendment number 1. The question is on the adoption of amendment number 1 by the senator from the 56th. Is there objection to adoption of the amendment? There is objection. All those in favor of amendment number 1 will vote yea. Opposed, nay. The secretary will unlock the machine. Have all senators voted? Have all senators voted? We got one more coming. Mr. Secretary, please close the machine. On the adoption of amendment number 1, the yeas are 14, the nays are 31, and the amendment is lost. All right, now we're going to take up amendment number 2. Amendment number 2. The question is on the adoption of amendment number 2 by the senator from the 8th. Is there objection to adoption of the amendment? The chair hears none, and amendment number 2 is adopted. Is there objection to agreeing to the report of the committee which is favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Is there objection to the main question being ordered? Chair hears none, and the main question is ordered. Questions on the passage of the bill as amended. All those in favor of the bill will vote yea. Opposed, nay. The secretary will unlock the machine. Have all senators voted? Have all senators voted? The hallway is clear. Mr. Secretary, please close the machine. On the passage of the bill, the yeas are 38, the nays are 8. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed as amended. Chair recognizes the senator from the 43rd for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the Senate agree to the House substitute to Senate Bill 288.
Mr. Secretary, please read the caption.
Senate Bill 288 by Senators Anderson of the 43rd, Jones of the 22nd, and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Code Section 35-3-37 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to review of individuals' criminal history record information, definitions, privacy considerations, written application requesting review and inspection so as to provide for the automatic restriction of certain criminal history record information of arrest where there's been a final disposition other than a conviction and for other purposes. The House offers the following substitute to Senate Bill 288, a bill to be enacted entitled an act to amend Article 2 of Chapter 3 of Title 35 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to the Georgia Crime Information Center so as to expand the ability of certain individuals to request record restriction for certain misdemeanor and conditional discharges and for other purposes. Mr. President, that completes the order.
Senator from the 43rd has moved that the Senate agree to the House substitute to Senate Bill 288. Is there objection? Chair recognizes the senator from the 43rd to speak to the measure.
Thank you, Mr. President. I didn't know if that pause was to get my attention or to wait for an objection, but I appreciate the
I
opportunity.
was confusing myself. It's late in the day.
It is. Thank you so much. So we passed this bill unanimously right before we left for our break on March the 12th. And this bill was heard in Special Access to Civil Justice Committee in the House. It did receive unanimous support. However, there are a few minor changes. And we'll start with lines 422 through 429. As you can see, the inserted information. This part of it ensures that restricted records are relevant to a pending action by providing that the judge shall order records pertaining to parties or witnesses in a civil action be provided to the attorney for use in that action only. The prior language only spoke to the need of individuals who are being deposed to be honest about any of their records that were sealed, And over on lines 470 through 480, that information is also amended as well on lines 512 through 513, but lines 470 through 480. This amendment was requested by the Prosecuting Attorney's Council to ensure that the sealed records for deferred adjudication cases remain available to law enforcement. It removes the word dissemination in two places because it was always the intent to maintain access to law enforcement. You'll see that same language, lines 512 through 513. And then on the last page, lines 583 through 584, this particular amendment says that the criminal history record information shall not be admissible in a civil action against an employer unless it is relevant to the facts underlying the proceeding or the veracity of the witness. The prior version used language saying that there must be a direct relationship between the information and the current proceeding, which did not track well with language in current evidence law. Also, the prior version did not provide for use of the information to challenge the truthfulness of a witness. After this was amended in committee, it received unanimous support, and just this morning, Senate Bill 288 was voted unanimously by the House. The stakeholders, again, and advocates are still supporting this bill, and I ask for your favorable consideration of this amendment. If there are questions, I will take them, and if not,
You have a question.
I do. Okay.
Chair recognizes the senator immediately to your left from the third.
Thank you, Mr. President. Will the senator yield?
Yes, I will.
Senator, could you just refresh my memory of what this bill is intended to do?
So this bill is intended to give people a second chance, have their records restricted, and position them for reemployment, for housing, and for to go back to school.
So it's sealing the records of a person who has been convicted of a crime.
A misdemeanor.
Of a misdemeanor.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And there are certain offenses that are not that are not.
Does the bill contain anything in there that would maybe seal the records of a person who is arrested for a crime but not convicted? Are those still public record, or?
Yes, those are. These are for offenses that are on their record but have not been cleared off.
Okay.
Even after paying their fine and probation, it still remains. So this helps clear that.
Yeah, would you be willing to maybe next year work on a bill that might? Are you here next year?
And absolutely, I will.
That would help maybe seal records of those who may be accused or investigated for a crime but not even.
Yes, sir. I would definitely
Thank you.
be more than willing to do that, Senator from the 3rd.
You have no more questions.
Thank you, Mr. President. I ask for your favorable consideration, and I yield the well.
Thank you, Senator. Any other senator wish to speak for or against the motion? Chair sees none. Senator from the 43rd has moved that the Senate agree to the House substitute to Senate Bill 288. All those in favor vote yea, opposed nay. The Secretary will unlock the machine. Have all senators voted? Have all senators voted? We got another one coming in. Ellis, or Senator from the 8th, take your time. Have all senators voted? Mr. Secretary, please close the machine. On the passage of the motion, the yeas are 46 and nays are 0, and the Senate has agreed to the House substitute to Senate Bill 288. Chair recognizes the Majority Leader for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. President. I hope this is the right motion. I move that the Senate stand adjourned until 10 a.m. on Thursday, 25 June 2020.
Mr. Secretary, do you have any announcements?
The Rules Committee will meet upon adjournment. There are no other committee meetings scheduled for the day. That completes the order, Mr. President.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 26th for an announcement.
Not announcement, Mr. President, Parliamentary Inquiry.
State your inquiry.
Will we get a chance to vote on anything that will bring us some revenue into this state?
I'll leave that up to each and every senator to determine.
Well, Parliamentary Inquiry again.
State your inquiry.
The bills that's stuck in Rules 903, which will allow us to vote on bringing some revenue into this state. Yeah, I hate to say it, but you know, leadership is one thing, and isn't it true that it did not have your blessings?
Certainly, you mentioned the Rules Committee. I can introduce you to the senator from the 53rd. He's a very fun person to hang around.
Thank you, Mr. President.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Any other senators have an announcement? The Majority Leader has moved that the Senate stand adjourned until Thursday, June 25th, 2020 at 10 a.m. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The senator from the 53rd has an announcement. You were close.
I know, that's amazing. Hey, the Senate Rules Committee, thank you, Mr. President. The Senate Rules Committee will meet in 30 minutes, so at 4:15. So enjoy yourself, take a break, and we'll see you at Senate Rules 4:15. Thank you.
On your way out, the senator from the 26th wants to talk to you. Chair recognizes the senator from the 24th for an announcement.
Dear colleagues, if you got any local bills, you need to give them to us, and need to give them to us quick. Thank you.
The Majority Leader has moved that the Senate stand adjourned until Thursday, June 25th, 2020 at 10 a.m. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. I don't know. The ayes have it. Senate stands adjourned.